Hey guys, Victor here coming to you with another video, and for today's video I'm going to be showcasing how to play Dark World. Now the basis for this Dark World deck is going to be the Fiendsmith Dark World deck that I showcased just the other day on this channel, so if you want to familiarize yourself with the list, be sure to check that out first and then come back to this one. But if you don't want to do that, that's also fine as well. And say for example you don't want to play the Fiendsmith engine, that's perfectly fine too, just because a lot of the combos or like the lines of play that I will be showcasing on this deck are honestly the same with or without them, for the most part anyways. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into it. Now shown here we have the Dark World deck that we will be using. However, we're going to be shuffling it up to make sure that the hands are authentic as possible, just because I could, just make myself a custom hand that will pretty much be able to win me the game every single time, but that's no fun. I'd rather it be a little bit more realistic in the approach. So we're just going to shuffle it up first, hopefully as quickly as possible, which, I mean, I know is counterintuitive because I'm pile shuffling, but I want to make sure that it's as randomized as possible, just to make it as authentic as possible. So we're going to do that, put these here, put those there, put these here, and then we're going to do a little bit more shuffling just to make sure. Okay, so now that we have our deck there, let's draw our starting five, being Rainbow, Danger Nessie, Triplet Tactics Talent, Allure of Darkness, and Danger Nessie. So right off the bat, we have Talent, which is something that we typically don't want to draw in our opening hand. We'd much rather this just actually be in the deck, so that we can search it off of thrusts at some point later in the combo, but it's honestly perfectly fine being in our opening hand. But just judging by our opening hand, it's honestly pretty mediocre, and I wanted to give you the authentic Dark World experience, and that's what we're doing. But even so, I think the best course of action is just to Allure of Darkness first, to draw two cards, and then hopefully those ones will be able to bail us out. So we draw the Dark Corridor, and we draw the Genta. Literally could not ask for two better cards. So we're going to banish one of the Nessies because we just don't need those, so we're just going to shove that over there to the side, and then put the Allure in our graveyard. Next, provided we didn't get hit by Droll and Lockbird, we can pretty much go for full combo, I would assume. So we're going to activate our Genta just to search out our Gates of Dark World. And then from here, you have a couple of choices. We could go straight for the Dark Corridor and just ensure that we can get something, but I feel like it's probably better just to hold it just for a little bit later in the game, so that we can ensure that we can actually access our Ceruli plays as consistently as possible. So instead, we're going to be activating our Gates of the Dark World first, and then we're going to be activating that, banishing our Genta, discarding our Rainbow, and drawing a card. So, okay, that makes it so much easier for us. So now, on resolution, we're going to be activating the Banish Genta's effect because we have a face-up Dark World card, and we're going to be activating our Rainbow's effect to search as well. The order doesn't really matter, so we're just going to summon Genta. But I mean, like, technically, I guess if you want to play around like Ash Blossom, you'd activate this as Chainlink 1 and this as Chainlink 2. But if our opponent had Ash, they probably would have just used it on the Allure or the Gates to begin with, so it's fine. Like I said, the order really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but so that one will summon, and because we already have the Silva, we're just going to add the OG Grappa to hand. And now things are honestly looking pretty good. So we're going to be activating now our Dark Corridor, and Dark Corridor will add our Ceruli. Ceruli will discard itself off of the Dark Corridor's effect, and then once that resolves, our Ceruli will activate. So we special summon Ceruli, and then we're going to discard the Silva. Silva's effect will activate, it'll come back, and then because it was discarded by our opponent's monster, they will put two cards from their hand to the bottom of their deck. It's important, the zone placement for Ceruli, you basically want to make sure that it's going to be under the extra monster zone. So try to keep it like in these two spots, just so that you can have an easier time bouncing it back with cards like Akashic Magician. But I mean, like, you also have cards like Security Dragon, I guess, that can bounce it back as long as it's co-linked, but it's so much easier for you if you put cards like Ceruli, Silva, your danger monsters into the extra monster zone, or like right under the extra monster zone, to ensure that you actually be able to draw something. But yeah, so with that, Silva comes back, we loot for 2, whatever. Because our opponent has a monster on the field now, we are able to activate Triple Tactics Talent just to look at their hand, rip a card out. If they have a Nibiru or something, that's fantastic. We're basically just going to be getting rid of the key threat that they have to ensure that we can actually, win the game. And typically this isn't going to normally happen, right? Because this isn't going to be like in your hand until like way later in the turn. But I guess we got a little bit lucky, even though I said that this is typically not something that you want to open. So we'll just activate Talent, rip another card out of our opponent's hand. Now they're down to 2. And we pretty much have like free reign to do whatever we want. But from here, I'm probably going to activate Rainbow. And we're going to be bouncing back Genta again, just so that we can activate his effect to search out for another Gates of the Dark World. So we're going to do that. We're going to activate Genta, search out another Gates. Then we're going to play it over the original Gates, which you've already used once. And then from here, back in focus. Okay, cool. Sorry for the ghetto setup. It's pretty difficult, which is why I normally don't do these types of videos to actually record something like this. But we're going to activate our Gates. We're going to banish our Genta. We're going to send Grapha to grave. We're going to draw a card. And from here, I guess you technically have a decision to make. You can activate your Grapha, for example, to pop the Ceruli, but it's not really worth it in most scenarios. So instead, we're just not going to activate it, right? And that's perfectly fine as well. But what we can do is, I mean, we have choices. We have so many choices because we drew the Tsuchinoko. We already used our Gate, so that doesn't matter. We could bounce back with Grapha. But if we're just trying to go for like max value, because like right here, we can basically just like hand loop them guaranteed, as we can just bounce back the Silva with the Grapha and then make a Koshik to bounce that back. And then at some point, a Danger will activate, but that's a little bit risky just because there's no guarantee that Silva will hit it, right? So I guess the best course of action would probably be to activate the Danger Tsuchinoko, just specifically over the Danger Nessie. Although I don't know, it's one of those things, right, where you got to take it by like a case-by-case basis. But you know what? Let's just activate the Danger Nessie instead this time, as it being able to summon itself and potentially draw a card, and then Tsuchinoko is going to be guaranteed to summon itself no matter what at some point in the deck, is honestly fine. So let's just go with the Nessie first, and then to make it fair, whatever, we have 2. We're going to make this even, we're going to make this odd, and then we're going to roll a die. So it's even, so we're going to discard this one. We discard the Danger Nessie, unlucky or lucky, depending how you see it. And then with this, we're going to add the Jackalope just because it's a guaranteed summon no matter what. And at this point in the combo, we basically just want to have as many monsters as possible. So yeah, that's perfectly fine. And then in this scenario, it really doesn't matter which one we do. So we're going to activate the Jackalope. If we summon it, great. If we don't, whatever. Just because it's going to be guaranteed to hit a monster is going to be guaranteed to hit the field. So we're going to roll, even, odd, even, hit the Jackalope, Jackalope's effect. So with Jackalope, honestly, actually, now that I think about it, it probably would have been better just to activate the Tsuchinoko first, just because the Jackalope will be able to guarantee that we get a level 8 Dark World monster. So yeah, ignore my bad plays, and we're just going to pretend that we activated Tsuchinoko instead. So we're going to do that. We get to draw a card, doesn't matter what it is. But this is really important to ensure that it's in the graveyard, just so that we can, you know, go for our Coach King Giant Trainer play, where we will draw and then attempt to burn our opponent for whatever. So we do that. We have our Bigfoot that we summon in defense. This card is honestly just irrelevant because we're going to get it eventually. And then from here, we're going to activate our Grapha, bounce back the Silva, special summon the Grapha, and now we have 3 level 8 monsters to work with. So we're going to Exceed Summon for our Coach King Giant Trainer. And this one allows us to detach a material, and we get to draw a card every single time. If it's a monster, we burn. If it's not, we don't burn. So we're going to get 3 draws just by detaching this. So I guess for our hand size, we're going to get the Fiendsmith Engraver, the 1 Allure of Darkness, and the 1 Rainbow. So we burn twice, and then we have a Allure just to like draw. I guess from here, we can go for like the Fiendsmith combo just to like add insult to injury, but I don't know, like the game's honestly just like wrapped up at this point. And this is one of the things that I was stressing, where even if you don't play the Fiendsmith stuff, it's honestly not like pivotal to the deck, as a lot of your combo lines are still going to be the same. This is literally just here so that we can make Caesar to ensure that we don't lose to Nib, but because we already Silva and Talanced our opponent for 3 cards, it really doesn't matter. But even so, just having that extra bit of protection. So we're going to activate our Engraver, we're going to add Tract to hand, if we can find it, and then we're going to activate Tract, and then Tract is going to add Fable Lurry. Fable Lurry will then be discarded off of the Tract and then summon itself. Then you link that away. You guys probably already know how the Fiendsmith combo goes at this point. So you link that into your Requiem. Requiem's effect will summon the Engraver. And then from here, actually, we can do a couple of things. So if you really want to, you can actually just get rid of the Ceruli like right now by equipping the Requiem onto the Engraver and then using Engraver's effect to send the Requiem and the Ceruli, but we still don't want to do that, much for the same reason why we didn't Grapha Pop it earlier in the game. We still want that there so that we can get rid of it eventually, but just not right now. So instead, we're going to do this. We're going to send those to the graveyard to summon out Necroquip Princess, and then from here, we can go straight for the Caesar, but I don't think I want to do that just yet because it's possible that we like just end up not being able to, or we end up like clogging our field. So let's just avoid that for now. And then instead, we're going to activate Allure of Darkness just to thin our deck a little bit more because we have literally 0 chance of drawing into any of our Fiendsmith engine. So we draw the Silva and we draw the Gen. Interesting. From here, we're probably just gonna banish the Rainbow, if I'm being honest with you. So this is like one of those really awkward situations that you may find yourself in. And because we know what our opponent's hand is and we don't have to make the Caesar, we can do a couple of other things with this actually. So from here, we're gonna activate Engraver and we're just gonna put back the, probably the Requiem, just because I don't want to draw the Lurry or the Engraver. So we're going to put back the Requiem. And then instead of Exceed summoning into Caesar with these, we're actually going to be using all 4 of them as fodder for our Saryuja. And then Saryuja will be special summoned. Its effect will activate to help you draw 4 more cards, and then you have to put 3 to the bottom of the deck. So we're going to draw Snow, Ken, Call by the Grave, and Genta. Pretty straightforward for sure. Ken is going to the bottom of the deck. And then because we're putting our opponent on 0 cards anyways, we're probably not going to be needing Call by the Grave at this point in the game. And for the final card, I don't think we're going to be needing Snow anymore either. So we're going to put those to the bottom. Don't shuffle your deck because you will get a game loss as the cards have to go to the bottom of the deck. They're not going to be shuffled in. And I just want to make you aware of that. From here, we're going to activate our Genta to get our 3rd and final copy of the Gates of Dark World. So, pretty useful. That's how we play 3 and 3, you know. You will be needing them at some point in the game. Then we're going to add that to our hand of Silva again. We're going to place this over that to place our final Gates of Dark World. And then from here, we're going to activate our Saryuja's effect to special summon Gen the Diamond Tiger. From here, Gen's effect will then activate, and we will give our opponent Ken the Warrior Dragon. So we're just going to put it under the Saryuja. It'll gain 300 attack, but that doesn't matter. It's just to help us have an easier time. Like I said, you want these cards to be in the extra monster zone typically, if you decide to like bounce them back. But even so, Ken's effect will activate. We get to draw 2 cards, and then we get to discard 1. So we draw 1, we draw 2. We're going to discard the Silva here, and then Silva's effect, because it was discarded by an opponent's monster, will activate, and we get to loop the final 2 cards out of our opponent's hand. So just like that, our opponent has no hand, and we still have plenty of gas to go, and they're basically just going to be top decking. So from here on, our goal is to try and get to like an IP Masquerena while clearing the board. So we're going to activate, or not activate, but we're going to bounce back Silva to special summon out our Rainbow, and then we're going to bounce back Rainbow to summon out our Grapha, just so that we have a little bit more fodder to work with. Then from here, we're going to activate our Dark World Accession to fusion summon. So if you use materials from your field or grave, they get banished, but the ones from your hand get discarded. So we're going to banish our Grapha, and we're going to discard our Rainbow in order to summon out our fusion Grapha. It gets boosted by 300 because of Saryuja, but what really matters is we're going to be using our Rainbow effect now, and we have the Accession Engrave. I don't think we have any targets. Oh yeah, we do. We have the original Grapha because we play 2, which is going to come up in a bit. So the first one, we're going to activate Accession's Graveyard effect to add itself back by discarding a card. And we're probably going to end up, like, you can make an argument for Silva or Grapha, but I think it's probably just best to discard Grapha so that we can start getting rid of our opponent's cards. So we're going to discard Grapha, add this back. Grapha's effect will activate to pop a card, and it really doesn't matter which one you pop, so we're just going to destroy the Ken, I guess, because it's fine. We already used this effect to special summon itself or whatever. I guess we could like bounce that back, but it's not really worth it. It's hard to say because you have so many choices. So I guess we're just going to thin out our deck a little bit more. So we're going to go Allure, draw 1, draw 2. We already used Dark Corridor, so that's basically worthless to us, but so are the rest of the cards in our hand. We're going to banish the Snow. And then from here, because we already used those, we have a choice between Grapha, or we have a choice between like making Muckraker, which would be pretty valuable, or we can like bounce back with Security Dragon. We can go for the Akashic Play to bounce this back. But I mean, this one takes a little bit more setup because they need to have the same type. So maybe not that one, but for sure this one would not be the end of the world. So even though we have the Grapha Fusion, it really doesn't matter at this point. We can go for like the Security Dragon just to make sure that it's co-linked, and then we're going to bounce this back to hand. Then we'll just eventually like do this. A friendly reminder that our opponent has no hand. And this combo may have been a little scuffed. And we could have done other stuff too, right? Like we could have bounced back our Grapha, for example, just to ensure that we can have another copy in our extra deck if we only play the one. But we didn't do that because we're bad. But it's just one of those things, right? Just to express that you have so many different lines that sometimes it's hard to keep track of. But let's just say that we did do that. We bounced back the Grapha Fusion to summon out the OG Grapha, so we have another copy later. And then we linked off the OG Grapha much the same. Then we still have all these other cards that we can do stuff with. We're probably just going to go for the Muckraker play, discarding the Silva, so we have a body on field. And as for what it brings out, it really doesn't matter. Let's be honest. This game is basically just wrapped up at this point. So I guess we'll just bring back, I don't know. We'll just bring back a Genta. Silva's effect will activate to summon itself. You can bounce these back with your Rainbows and your Graphas. And then you can just, you know, make another fusion on the next turn or whatever. You just set that card, and the game's wrapped up. Your opponent has no cards in hand. They're top decking. One card is not going to save them against Graphas, negate effect or pseudo negate effect. So, you know, it's a little scuffed, you know, because we did it live. But I feel like I was able to get the point across for the most part, as there's like a lot of really delicate moving pieces that you constantly have to be aware of. This isn't like a modern Yu-Gi-Oh deck where you just have one card combos that flow chart into one another. You really have to think about your plays before you make them, because one small misstep can make or break your entire game. And with that, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.